Hey everyone, welcome to TrailSage, and today we're talking about the responsibilities of being a lead rider. So if you're a rider that's in the lead, what are the things that you should be doing? And the reason why I wanted to cover this topic was I was recently following a couple riders, and the rider in front of me ducked because there was a low branch, and this thing nearly took off my head. So, that was really dangerous. And in road riding, there are different hand signals that we use to let the riders behind us know, hey, there's something coming up that you should be aware of. Well, when we're mountain biking, we don't have that luxury. Our hands have to be on the bars. So what we'll do instead is we'll use verbal cues to let the riders know what's coming up.
Roll and then drop.
So what are the things that you should be calling out if you're the lead rider? And, let's start with the most obvious, and that's the low branch, right? And you might be thinking, well, you should have your head up. Like, how did you not see the branch coming? And the reason's pretty simple. If you're in the lead, you have a clear view of everything, right? You know exactly what's coming up. But if you're the guy or girl that's following behind, you're not always looking up. Sometimes you're focused on their back wheel, or you're focused on other things that are happening around you. You don't necessarily have your head up. And so when that person ducks, depending on how close you are, you might not have the reaction time to be able to duck and get out of the way of that, right? So calling out things like a low branch or even things along the sides of the trail that could catch their pedal, those are all important things to call out. I think another important one that you'll often hear me call out in my POV videos are drops and rolls. And so, and this one is a little bit more complicated in that you have to know the people that you're riding with. But for instance, like Dan and I, we just unsaid rule that I know that if it's under 3 foot, we're comfortable with that kind of a drop. And so I don't need to stop to look at those drops. I'll just call them out. I'll say, hey, drop. Or if it's a roll, I'm calling out a roll. And drops and rolls are one of those unique features that you can't tell. You can't tell often until you get to the edge. You don't know if it's going to be a drop or a roll, but how you tackle that feature is completely different, right? I'm in a completely different body position and mindset when I'm doing a drop versus a roll. And so, having a little bit of a heads up, like, hey, this is a drop coming up, boom, Dan's getting ready to tackle that drop. Or if it's a roll, then he's getting ready to handle that roll. But calling them out blindly like that is not always going to be the case. I'll give you a good example. About a year ago, we went to a place called Pine Hill, which is a fantastic ride. And if you haven't watched that video, definitely watch that video. But Pine Hill had these huge rock boulders, right? And you had no idea if the boulder was a drop or roll. Like you couldn't tell as you were coming up onto the boulder. So oftentimes that meant if you were in the lead, you taking the go around and calling out to the person in the back, like, hey, listen, that's a drop or it's a roll. Or, if it was too big of a drop, letting them know, hey, we should probably stop and look at this. But that often meant that the lead rider was missing out on that feature. And yeah, that sucks. That happens. Sometimes you're going to have to miss a feature, but just because you missed it doesn't mean that everyone else has to miss it, right? So letting them do that drop or roll, and now suddenly they're in the lead, right? And now you're following behind them, and now it's their job to call out the drop and roll. So using that leapfrog technique is a really handy tool that Dan and I use all the time. The other situation that you run into a lot is a really technical section. If you're a lead rider and you see a technical rock garden coming up, sometimes I'll just call out to Dan. I'll say, hey, give me some space or space. And that signals to the riders behind you, hey, open up a little bit of a gap. And so, as a lead rider, first of all, that takes the pressure off of you a little bit, right? You don't feel someone's back wheel right on you. But if you screw up, that allows you time to get off the trail and allow the other riders their opportunity to try and tackle that trail. So we talked about calling out features and different things that we see on the trail, but what about other people? It's not like we get to ride downhill parks all the time. I mean, that'd be awesome, but that's not usually the case. And so that means we're using trails and we have to be thinking about other user groups, whether that's hikers, equestrians, or other riders. So how do you handle that kind of a situation? If you're the lead rider, and you're coming up to a hiker, let them know how many people you have in your group.
I got one more behind me, and then that's it. Thanks so much, guys.
You might be thinking, oh, well, they could just look around and see. No, I mean, sometimes your group is spread out, right? And so just letting them know, hey, there's 5 in our group. And conversely, if you're the last person, in that group, as you're passing, that hiker or whatever, let them know, hey, I'm the last guy, I'm the last girl. And then that allows them to, move on to the trail and not have to worry about, is another rider coming?
Thanks so much.
And on that same note, your interaction with that person could be the only interaction they've had with a mountain biker. So kill them with kindness. Don't forget how startling it can be for a hiker or an equestrian when you see a rider come up on you. It's just like, whoa, So if you're a rider, try and diffuse that with kindness. Be like, oh, hey, I'm so sorry, or sometimes they'll try and aggressively move off the trail and be like, hey, no, I got plenty of room or whatever. And remember that your interactions reflect on the whole mountain bike community. They can walk away from that situation being like, wow, mountain bikers are really jerks. Or they can walk away with that situation being like, wow, mountain bikers are really great. The other situation that you'll run into is other riders. If you're coming up on somebody, and they might not be aware that you're coming up, and you just say, hey, rider back. Or if you're leading the ride and you see a rider coming, I'm going to say, hey, rider up, and lets them know that you're there, but it also lets your group know that, hey, maybe we need to move over. And there are trail etiquettes for this. I think a common one is that if you're on a climb, you have the right of way. And, for the most part, I try and follow that. If I'm on a downhill and I see somebody climbing, I'll try and move over, or I'll stop and let them climb that trail, because it's hard to climb. And conversely, if I'm on a climb, sometimes I'll just use my common sense. If the climb isn't that important to me, or it's not a technical climb, sometimes I'll just move over and just say, hey, come on through. So every situation and scenario is going to be different, and just use your common sense. Quick side note, if you're enjoying this video, hit that like button. And if you're really enjoying it, consider becoming a member. It's only $2 a month, and it makes a huge difference to the channel. All right, back to the video. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was just knowing your abilities and the abilities of your group. And so if you're leading a ride and you know that the person behind you has a certain skill set that lends itself better to that section of the trail, let them through. I think a great example of this is Dan is an excellent downhiller, right? And so, if I'm coming up on a downhill, I'll just turn around and say, hey, do you want this? And he'll say, yeah. And then he'll just jump ahead and I'll follow him. I don't want to be the person that's holding him up on the downhill when I know he can be shredding it a lot faster. Just being considerate of other people, knowing your skill level and knowing their skill level and ability makes a huge difference in ride quality, right? It's all about sharing the stoke. It's all about high fives, and your pride and selfishness shouldn't get in the way of other people's enjoyment, So we talked about things like calling out features, but also, sometimes having to miss a feature so that, they're able to enjoy it. We talked about interacting with other user groups, and just killing them with kindness where you can. We talked about riding etiquette in terms of, just who has the right of way and how to interact with other riders. We talked about knowing your skill level and the people that you're riding with, and sometimes, hey, maybe you shouldn't be in the lead at this moment. So, it really comes down to maximizing everyone's enjoyment on the trail. Well, if you think I missed anything, or there are certain things that you do when you're leading a ride, put them all in the comments below. I'd love to read them, and I'm sure that will be helpful for other riders as well. Well, that's it for this video. If you have any feedback or questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe or join now for some extra perks. Thanks for watching.